Many thanks for joining us on your favorite program on TV, Corporate Governance Platform, proudly brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. I'm coming to you live from MITV in Lagos. I am Tunde Odeyemi. And in our conversation this evening, we'll be looking at the role of regulators in entrenching good corporate governance. And I have with me here in the studio, I have Distinguished Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, Mr. BAMIDELE ADEBAYO. He will be leading the conversation on the role of good corporate governance. Mr. BAMIDELE ADEBAYO is a PhD research student of Osun State University and a Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of the United Kingdom, ICSA, and a Fellow of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN. He was the former Deputy Registrar of the Institute in Nigeria before venturing into legal practice, and presently he is a faculty member of the Department of Private and Property Law of the Faculty of Law at Redeemers University, Ede. Mr. Adebayo is also a member of the International Bar Association as well as Nigerian Bar Association. He obtained his LLB degree with second class upper and LLM degree from the University of Lagos. He had earlier obtained a bachelor's degree in political science from the then Ondo State University, Ado-Ekiti, now Ekiti State University. Mr. Adebayo is a notable public speaker and an erudite author, having written 4 other non-law books and another book titled KSA Melodies of Wisdom, a 576-page book published by the University Press, Ibadan. Mr. BAMIDELE ADEBAYO, you are welcome to Corporate Governance Platform.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome.
It's a pleasure having you on the show.
I'm very pleased to meet you too.
And we are going to be discussing the role of the regulators in entrenching good corporate governance. Let me kick off this conversation by asking, who are really the regulators in the context of corporate governance?
Thank you, my friend. The regulators in the context of corporate governance are majorly 4.
Okay.
Although we have other regulators, we have the National Insurance Commission.
Okay.
We have the National Pension Commission.
Okay.
We have the Corporate Affairs Commission.
Okay.
We have the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Okay.
And then we have the SEC, that's the Security and Exchange Commission.
Okay. Those are just the regulators
within the context of corporate governance.
Okay.
They are sectoral regulators.
They are sectoral regulators. Yes. Okay. May I, at this point in time, also extend opportunity to our viewers to be part of the program by sending questions or comments via text message. The text message number that you can send your text message to is 080-2323-1287. I'll take that number again, 080-2323-1287. Please only text message for your comments or questions. Please no call. And when you send your text message, kindly put your name on it. Okay, you have told us that the regulators are basically 4, and you actually mentioned the 4. Now, why is the issue of monitoring of compliance in relation to corporate governance? Why is it relevant in relation to corporate governance code, the issue of compliance?
Thank you so much. When these codes were issued, there were rancors, there were indiscipline, there were mismanagement, and there were frauds in many of these corporate entities.
Okay.
When we take a cue from what happened in the collapse of Enron and WorldCom, the regulators, are of the view that if a seemingly well-managed international corporate entities like WorldCom and Enron could collapse, then anything can happen. So in 2003 in Nigeria, corporate governance started emerging, and with time, we had series of sectoral codes like the CBN code, the SEC code, the NICOM, that's the National Insurance Commission, and then the PENCOM, that's the Pension Commission, regulating the pension, the Central Bank of Nigeria regulating the banking sector, the National Pension Commission regulating the pension industry, and so on and so forth. Now, in 2016, the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria came up with a code which metamorphosed into what we have as Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 now.
Okay.
The 2018 code has a general application. It is not restricted to any particular sector, whereas those other 4 regulators have mentioned, they are regulating their respective sector, like the PENCOM regulates the section, the pension sector, the CBN regulates the banking sector, and so on and so forth. But the 2018 code has a wider application, and the essence of this regulation, so to say, is to ensure compliance. You know, if the codes are there and the principles, the ethics, the standard, and the intent, the values that this code are supposed to bear or to bring to corporate entities are not complied with, then the essence of having the code will be useless. So the regulators are saddled with the responsibility of ensuring compliance by all these sectors. By so doing, the essence of having it will be realized. For example, if the code said there shouldn't be there should be a separation between the chairman of a company and the CEO. You can't be the chairman and the CEO at the same time in order to avoid conflict of interest. But if this thing is not complied with and is there in the code, then the code is not better than the piece of paper on which it is written. But by these regulators coming on board to ensure that companies actually comply with the letters of the code, it is by so doing that the effect and the impact of the code will be realized, and the anticipated benefits will be derived from having it.
Fantastic. Earlier you mentioned some of the sectoral regulators.
Yes.
Now, I want to mention some other aspects of regulators or government bodies. What role do bodies or regulators such as Financial Reporting Council, Security and Exchange Commission, and Corporate Affairs Commission play in ensuring compliance with the code? First, with the sectoral codes.
Okay. Thank you. For example, the Corporate Affairs Commission. Recently, that's last year, we have, for example, the new Companies and Allied Matters Act.
Okay.
Which, I mean, is the principal legislation regulating companies in Nigeria and allied matters as well. Now, in the old CAMA, there were penalties for, offenses, but the penalties stipulated in the old CAMA have no relevance today. For example, when you say for each day that default continues, the defaulter will pay 50 naira.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense. So, for example, Corporate Affairs Commission, as a regulator, came out with a regulation called Company Regulation 2021. So, when you read sections of CAMA now, and any reference is to be made to penalties, the provision we said as stipulated by the Commission's regulations. So it is in the Commission regulation, that the company regulation published by the Corporate Affairs Commission, that the appropriate penalties for a particular offense is stated. By so doing, the Corporate Affairs Commission regulates the company, corporate entities.
Okay.
Now, look at PENCOM, for example. As a pensioner now, you can move from one PFA to another, that's a pension fund administrator, to another. That window is opened. So that if you are not satisfied with the services of a particular PFA, you can migrate to another one. By so doing, every PFA is now on its toe to ensure that the best service delivery is given or offered to their clients or their customers. By so doing, PENCOM is regulating the sector. Then, of course, SEC. As a public company now, you have to comply. There's a threshold of the number of shares that you can, trade on the floor of the exchange. there are rules that you must comply with. For example, now, for someone to be a director in a public company, you cannot be a director in more than 5 public companies now. There is now a restriction.
At the same time?
At the same time.
Okay.
There is now a restriction on the number of directorship that you can hold, unlike before, where a person can be a director in 10, 15 companies, and then when board meetings are called, you are always sending apology and so on and so forth. So if you are not contributing meaningfully to board deliberations, then why are you there? So that is why the CAMA came out with that, and the SEC will ensure that all public companies, for example, adhere to that, and that will bring out the beauty in corporate governance, because we now have people, we now have directors who have time to dedicate and come out with quality deliberations that can move their company forward and drive its values.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adebayo. Still talking about the regulators, do you agree with the assumption that regulators, as it were now, have enhanced responsibilities in the face of the rampaging COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you. COVID-19 has brought what is now called the new normal. What is normal before is now abnormal, and what appears to be abnormal is now normal. And everybody is changing, everybody is adapting to that. For example, now, aside public companies, private companies are allowed to hold virtual meetings, and that places additional responsibility on the board, because having virtual meetings entails putting certain things in order. The only problem in a country like Nigeria is infrastructural deficiency.
Okay, sorry, before you move further, the way you talk about meetings,
yes,
are you talking about the board meetings or the annual general meetings of the companies?
It can be either.
Okay.
It can be either board meeting or annual general meeting, if but not for public companies, for private companies.
Okay.
Public companies, AGM, annual general meeting, fiscal meeting must still be held. Okay. Now, the additional responsibility it placed on this regulator is that you now have to comply, and COVID is a global event. You now have to comply with the challenges that come with the outbreak of the pandemic. Challenges like social distancing, challenges like work from home, challenges like IT, electronic means of doing things, the paperless industry, and so many other things. All these place additional responsibilities on the regulators, and that shouldn't be an excuse for regulators not to do the needful. So they have to be on their toes, and they have to cope with the new normal. They have to cope with the challenges.
Okay, if you are just joining us, it's Corporate Governance Platform, coming to you from MITV and proudly brought to you by ICSAN, and we are discussing the role of regulators in entrenching good corporate governance. And I have with me in the studio Mr. BAMIDELE ADEBAYO, leading in the conversation. You have spoken about the sectoral regulators, and you have also touched on the others. Now, with the advent of the NCCG, the National Code of Corporate Governance of 2018, will you still say that the sectoral codes are very relevant?
The sectoral codes are very, very relevant. It's a matter of demarcation of jurisdiction of operation. For example, like I said earlier, the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018 has a national appeal. It cut across all the sectors, regardless of the size of the company, either small or big or private or public. The code is applicable. But when you talk of other regulators, other sectoral regulators, like National Insurance Code of Corporate Governance on national for insurance company now, that code will only regulate insurance companies.
Okay.
The Pension Code will only regulate companies under insurance in the insurance sector. So those ones are sectoral based, while the NCCG 2018 is national based. The only thing is that if there is now a conflict between any of the provision of the sectoral code and the national one, I want to believe that the national one will prevail. You know, as long as it doesn't have any adverse effect on. And I think those who promulgated this codes must have taken that into consideration. So one does not affect the other. Both the sectoral codes and the national code, they are all relevant. What differs is the area of applicability, the area where they cover.
Okay, I will talk about the applicability later. Mr. Anwo Olawale sent a text message. This is quite long, but let me read it. I hope you understand this. Why is it that people at the helms of affairs of these corporate commissions are being influenced by their financial inputs or obligations in order to regulate the financial and monetary aspects of the commissions, which is not in pros and cons of the stakeholders?
Well, if I get that question,
Mr. Olawale.
Yes, Mr. Olawale, thank you for your message. One of the challenges of regulators in this country is lack of independence. You know, for a regulator to actually regulate, there must be that freedom from either political godfatherism, money bags, and what have you. That is, if I get that question very well. Because one of the reasons why the regulators appear docile, appear incompetent in regulating is activities of, you know, external factors. Let me put it that way. External factors. The money bags. This is a country where, for example, we have two different sets of law. It is only the poor man that the law is made for. Once you can have your way, then you go away with it, and that's not good for us. That we cannot advance in other climes, in other developed climes. Regardless of who you are, the law is equally applicable. That is where the concept of equality of law actually applies. But here there are discrimination, depends on who you are, and it's also happening among the regulators. But it's not all that hope is not all lost. Once we have the political will and we are all ready, it's a collective effort that you know, for us to win that battle, it must be a collective effort, and I believe with determination we'll be there.
Okay, let me also take this comment or question from Jeremiah from Shasha. I think this question has to do with pension.
Okay.
Not directly not directly corporate governance, but I'll still take it anyway. Jeremiah from Shasha says, my comment has to do with the compulsory manner in which pensioners were being compelled to be receiving their pensions money on a monthly basis instead of giving out the entire balance or reasonable amount to enable the pensioner to start their own business. I know it's on pension, it's not directly on corporate governance, but one or two comments for Mr. Jeremiah here.
Well, the essence of pension is to take care of the pensioner at his old age. That is the philosophy behind it. So it is not expected to be given as a lump sum, you know, during the active life of the pensioner. No, it is to be paid, you know, periodically, just like as if you are still in active service and you are receiving your monthly salary. So to be taken care of. But if you are giving at once, I mean, we all know that in every business there is element of risk. Okay. What if something happens and the whole money is gone in one day, and then the person begins to wallow in penury, which will be against the spirit, the letter, and the intent of a pension. That is why, you know, pension money cannot be given en bloc. The only thing I know, if somebody loses his job and the person is over 50, then the person can apply, and 25% of whatever balance is in his RSA, retirement savings account, will be given at least to alleviate the suffering pending when he'll be able to secure another job. So that is what. But no, globally, I don't think there is anywhere where, you know, pension authority will give a pensioner the entire retirement savings he has do business.
Okay, let's talk about the applicability of the code. What will you say concerning the adequacy or otherwise of apply or explain or apply and explain operative mechanism of the National Code of Corporate Governance?
Thank you. The National Code of Corporate Governance is principle-based. I think it has about 28 principles and it contains about 7 parts. Now, the philosophy behind the apply and explain mechanism is that the applicable or the relevant companies are expected to apply these principles to their operations and to also explain how they have applied the principles. That is the concept of apply and explain. Now, to the issue of adequacy or otherwise, the only challenge here is that the code does not have the force of law. It's voluntary. It is voluntary. In other words, if a company fails or for whatever reason refuses to apply, there cannot be any legal sanction, although there are, legal penalty, although there are sanctions, maybe fine or whatever, or maybe the company will not be rated as a well-governed company. And it has a way of also affecting investors' confidence. When a company is not, because I've gone through the codes and I know that those principles are fantastic. And any company that genuinely apply them will, definitely have a positive turnaround in its entire other profit and the satisfaction of the interests of other stakeholders. But what we are saying here is that because it doesn't have the force of law, there is nothing that says that if you don't comply with it, then you are facing a legal sanction. To that extent, I don't think it is adequate. Compare with the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of the USA, SOX Act. Okay. That one has the force of law, and there are heavy legal implications for non-compliance. I think maybe our regulator wants to play it down a little bit by making it somehow voluntary. If the level of non-compliance is becoming alarming, I think the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria can have a rethink and possibly consider making it to have the force of law.
Okay, if there is no force of law, that means those codes are voluntary, they are not mandatory. Now, what role do regulators have in the monitoring compliance of the code?
Yes, we now have board evaluation, we have a management evaluation, we have so many other things. In spite of the fact that it is not made mandatory, every company wants to attract investors. Every company wants to have good relation with host community. Every company wants to, as much as possible, satisfy the interests of the various stakeholders. So, aside having the force of law, aside penalties, a well-governed, an effective board, we voluntarily want to comply. So, the role of the regulators, in spite of the voluntariness of the code, is to ensure that where there are non-compliance, then the area of non-compliance will be reviewed, and it will be marked against the company.
Without legal implication?
Without legal implication, but when a company is having a negative goodwill, there's what we call goodwill. Goodwill is part of an asset of a company. Okay. Oh, this company is noted for non-compliance. This company doesn't have a board that cut across. One of the principles of the code is that the board should be effective in terms of composition, diversity, so that there can be mix of skill and so on and so forth. So that when you apply your skill to contribute to the quality of the deliberation of the body, there is a way it promotes the goodwill of the company. So, even without the force of law, I don't think any company will want to voluntarily, don't want to comply with the code, except if they have genuine reason to do that. If the cost of applying will outweigh the intended benefit, and they will have to explain the reason why. And if the regulator reason along with them, so be it.
Okay, this may be my last question because of time. Beyond the regulators, what role do institutional investors play in ensuring compliance with the code?
Thank you. Institutional investors are, entities that pool funds together, just like the insurance companies. It's an example of institutional investors. Some of these discount houses, it's an example of institutional investors and so on. The role they have to play is because they invest. Where your treasure is where your heart will be. Because their investment is in a particular company, they will take it upon themselves to ensure that the company comply with the necessary code, especially if they know that non-compliance will affect their interest. And if the company doesn't, regardless of whether you have to comply voluntarily or not, if they withdraw their investment from such company, the company will collapse, because they provide the chunk of the financial strength of those companies. So, and no company will want that to happen. So, because of the fear of withdrawal of the investment of the institutional investors, the company will want to comply. So, by so doing, they are regulating them.
Okay, because of the fear of withdrawal of their investment from the company, the institutional investors are also regulating body corporates in Nigeria. This is where we wrap it up. We'd like to thank Mr. BAMIDELE ADEBAYO, a distinguished fellow of ICSAN, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, my brother.
And thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
I would like to wrap it up here and also thank you for watching. We'd like to thank the people that sent text messages. Jeremiah, Mr. Olawale, thank you very much for being part of the show. We invite you to join us next week, same time, same station. Keep spreading the gospel of corporate governance and remain Tunde Odeyemi. Bye for now.
Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.